Good afternoon, everybody, and thank you for joining us today. My name is Andrew. I'm from Jam Automation, and we're one of Nintex's premier partners. That's enough about us. We're not here to talk about Jam today. We're here to talk about the topic that you can see on screen today, which is for those of you who are currently running Nintex Workflow for either Office 365 and or for SharePoint on-prem. It's about how do you manage the transition from those platforms across into the net new world, and what your options are. The goal of this webinar is that it's going to be a series of three. So this is the introduction piece. So we're going to cover off at a very high level why we're here, what your options are, a few tips and tricks, just but very high level. And then in the following webinars, we're going to go into some of the technical detail that sits behind. Okay, so you've decided what route to take. How do you get there? So from a first perspective, let's just talk and remind ourselves a little bit as to why are we here? Why are we talking about this particular subject? Well, there are a couple of reasons. First of all is a technical push. So for those of you that are running Nintex for Office 365, you're probably aware that Microsoft is retiring the SharePoint 2013 workflow engine. This is not available in new tenants today, and it will be removed from all tenants in April 2026. And the Nintex workflow engine for Office 365 runs off of that. So if you're in that world, you've got until April 26, and then you have to have made a plan and moved off it. For those of you that are running Nintex for SharePoint on-premise, as of today, and Microsoft do keep moving this date a little bit, Microsoft will no longer support the SharePoint 2010 workflow engine for SharePoint server editions from July 2026. That doesn't mean that it won't run. It just means that if you have any problems, Microsoft won't be able to provide any updates or fixes and support that. So you should be thinking of migrating off of that and moving into the net new world. So that's the technical push. Then there's the technical pull. There's more reasons than just having to do something. Actually, people want to move away from some of that legacy tech. There are a couple of reasons for that. These days, there's a lot more to workflow than just SharePoint. It used to be that back in sort of 2010 and a little bit before, SharePoint in organizations was used as the sole portal where people would go and store their documents. They would use it as a landing page to all their internal applications, for all of their lists. Everything was in SharePoint and people lived inside of SharePoint. That's not necessarily the case these days. Everybody's on mobile devices, they're on different web portals, multiple systems that they're jumping in and out of, and people are a lot more comfortable with doing that. So you can do a lot more when you jump out of SharePoint. A couple of examples on screen here: building custom portals, collaborating with external parties who you don't want to bring into your SharePoint environment, non-document and list-centric use cases that you just maybe don't want to integrate with SharePoint at all. You want to put something on top of another platform like Salesforce.com, or perhaps you're just even doing forms on top of data that's storing information inside of OneDrive. There's lots of things that you can do now that are not just inside of SharePoint, whereas in the past you may have had to do that. Once you move away from legacy platforms, there's also a lot more that you can do around the edges of workflow. So some examples there are you can interconnect with many different systems a lot easier. You're able to get and leverage a lot more of the current AI stack and also the future AI stack that we see coming around. And also you're able to think a little bit more about how you can get better business intelligence and management information out of those platforms, which a lot of the work that we do is critical to our customers. Yes, they want process, but actually they want to be able to get the MI out of that and the BI out of that so that they can actually drive better decisions and improve what they do. And then, hey, people just want to use modern technology. So people want to stay relevant. People that are building solutions want to learn new skills. They want to find ways to deliver more value into the organization and to their client base. And that's hard to do if you're running on technology that's sitting on a sort of 2010 stack. There's so much more that you can do in the modern world. So there's that technical pull that gives an opportunity to take advantage of. And then, of course, there's the business. So businesses themselves have been modernizing their business processes over the last X number of years. And in particular, over the last couple of years, as these new technologies come online, we've got AI that's sitting there that's supporting us. People are looking at how their processes are actually running and how they're being used. And in addition to wanting to change business processes, actually, you're probably sitting in a case where some of the workflows that you have created for the business actually are not being used as they were designed for, because over the last 5, 6, 7, 8 years, the business may have changed the way they operate, and people are doing workarounds all around the edges in order to use a system, and they're fudging it. And so now's an opportunity to actually take all of that and replan it all and start to execute the next phase of your workflow and business process journey. Just like technical people don't necessarily live in SharePoint anymore, same thing for businesses. They don't necessarily live inside of SharePoint solely. So there's an opportunity to have them jump out, or have them use it when they're in the office and jump out when they're not in the office. And also you want to be able to continue to empower the wider suite of business users. So what are your options? You've got to move, or you should move. I would like to think about what do we want to do. So number one option, hey, you can wait, and then you can panic a bit later. It's probably not the most advised one, but I can guarantee you it will happen in some instances, probably through no fault. It'll just be somebody will suddenly go, hey, here's something that you need to think about. Go make a plan for me inside the company. Well, that, as we know, is quite stressful when that happens to us. The second option, which is probably the one where we are right now, is to say, okay, well, now's the time to start making a plan. And when you're making that plan, you can then start to execute on that in a meaningful way. And you can start to get benefits in the short term, and then you can increase those benefits over the medium term. And by the time those 2026 dates hit, you won't have to worry about it, because you'll be up and running on something completely new, which is going to give you a lot more benefit in the organizations. The third one is actually, if you are a very risk-averse organization and you want to remove risk early, which we're doing with some of our clients, is you just want to get off now. You don't want to leave it until you get to that towards that sort of April date, and people want to be off these platforms by sort of the middle of next year. And you can get going now, and you can certainly achieve the majority of that depending on the number of workflows and forms you've automated. So you can remove that risk early out of your company. Now, in order to move, there's some decisions about what you would move to. First of all, what platform are you on? So what are you moving from? What would you like to move to? What migration tooling is available? So how are you going to get there? And then what support is available to you, and what support should you have or could you have in order to help you get there? So if you're sitting on Nintex for Office 365, then the two areas that we're really focusing on in this webinar series to move you to are the Nintex Automation Cloud platform, which is the new generation of the Nintex workflow platform, which we'll talk a little bit more detail later if you don't know about it. The other piece, because Microsoft are recommending on the shutdown of their workflow engine you move to the Power Platform, we will talk about, okay, well, what does that actually mean, and what would that entail for you a little bit later, and then in further webinars as well, so you're educated on that piece. If you're moving to Nintex Automation Cloud, then Nintex provides some great migration tooling, which actually means that you can get it turned on in your new infrastructure, and then you can go and take the current workflows you've got, and you can import them up into your new SharePoint environment, into the new Nintex Automation Cloud environment. And then there are some really good documentation about what will come across and what won't come across. And you can take a lot of your workflows and you can pretty much automatically get them over with some slight tweaks. For more complex things where you've put in custom code into your forms in particular, or you've got custom CSS in there, etc., or the workflows are just really quite complicated, and as I mentioned before, you want to take the opportunity to rebuild them. Maybe you won't take that tooling and just migrate them straight up. You might migrate some of it, and then you can actually work with your Nintex skills, with Nintex themselves, or with a partner, i.e. Jam, in order to take those scenarios, more complex ones, and get them delivered, as well as in order to go and rebuild some of those processes that were no longer fit for purpose. The third option is, look, if you have been using Nintex for many, many years, and you've got all the skills and you're familiar with Nintex Automation Cloud, then hey, of course you can go and do it yourself. You can just turn on the tooling and you can go and do that exercise all by yourself. On the Power Platform, there's no migration tooling there that's provided, so you would need to go and rebuild that. So Nintex are not going to give you tooling to do that. We are very happy to support you in that exercise, both in a consideration perspective and then also in sort of looking at what the best plan is for you there. You, of course, can do it yourself. I've put a little explanation mark next to that because actually before you go down that route, what I suggest you do, if you haven't already done it, is just pause and talk to people that have either tried to do it before or have had experience in doing that, who can then give you a little bit of a sanity check on A, is it the right move to do? And B, if you are going to go and do that, what the considerations are. And again, we're very happy to talk to you about that, even if it's just an informal conversation for an hour or half an hour, just to see whether we can support you or just give you some tips and tricks along the way. If you are on Nintex for SharePoint on-premise and you are moving to the cloud, then very similar play, in fact, exactly the same. There is tooling from Nintex to help move you up into Nintex Automation Cloud, and the rest of that conversation that I just mentioned stays exactly the same. So reasonably nice and simple. For Nintex for SharePoint on-premise, and if you're staying on-premise, so if you don't want to move across to the cloud for whatever reason, and there are many good reasons that companies don't want to do that, then Nintex have got a great tool called K2, Nintex K2 Automation for on-premise, which I must say, for those of you that are watching this webinar that know me, it's my favorite because I come from the K2 world. So I think that's a great option if you're staying on-premise. You can't move to the Power Platform because it doesn't run on-premise. So again, it's another good option for you to go and do that. It is a rebuild exercise. The two platforms just operate fundamentally differently, and trying to do an automated migrate from A to B is probably not the right approach. So there's no migration tooling. From a Jam perspective, we would love to support you on that. We've got a lot of great K2 skills in the company. And that's, again, why I've put a little explanation mark next to the tick box. A, from a pure awareness perspective on how to architect K2 solutions, but also some frameworks to help get you going quickly. So there's no need to go and build everything from scratch anymore. We've got some great frameworks that can help get you started with your workflows, your forms, and setting up your infrastructure correctly so that exercise becomes really quite nice and easy and fun for you, rather than sort of plodding along and doing a complex migration all by yourself. Some things to consider as you go down this journey. The first is that Nintex Automation Cloud, it's actually got a lot of new features that some of the customers we speak to that have been running on the previous technology sets don't know about, either because they haven't seen Nintex Automation Cloud before, or they haven't had the time to go and dig into it and really consider what those are. First of all, you can do non-SharePoint workflow and forms. So even if you're migrating stuff from SharePoint to SharePoint Online, and you're going to continue with that, you can branch out and do more as well around the edges. There's also My Nintex, which is Nintex's out-of-the-box portal that lets you go and run Nintex Automation Cloud without SharePoint or alongside SharePoint from a end-user perspective, as well as an authoring and a management perspective. It's a portal that lets you go and see all of your Nintex workflow tasks allocated out to you, all of the form submissions that may have been submitted, lets you go and track your workflows, lets you go and see things that are saved and in draft. So you can actually use that portal out of the box without having to configure anything. It's just there available for you. You can manage your active tasks, so you can complete work on behalf of people in a really easy way. So, if work's sitting with somebody and they're away, or they just can't do it, you can go in and do it on behalf of them. There is enhanced workflow tracking, which is really good, which gives you the ability not only to track which workflows have started, but also gives you detailed information about where the workflow steps it's run through, where it's at, how long it's taken, as well as being able to go and have a look at the forms that have been submitted, as well as having a look at the task forms that have been completed. So you can be totally up to date on what information has been seen by the team members, seen by the people that submitted it, and seen by the team members that have actually then gone and made the decisions on the actions that have been sent to them. You can also restart error workflows from the top, not from inside the body of the workflow, but if something fails, you can re-kick it off with the same workflow data, which is quite often helpful. it's really particularly helpful in when you're developing. It can save you a lot of time. You set up your test case, go build and restart something and just watch it run through. That's pretty cool. From a development framework, as in kind of building solutions, the extensions framework that sits inside of Nintex Automation Cloud is pretty cool. It's a modern way of going and building extensions onto that platform. I'll jump down to the bottom as well while I'm on that, which is that there's a modern API. So you've got a full modern API on there, whereas the stuff that's sitting inside of the on-prem is sort of legacy. So you're able to integrate it into a lot more platforms, particularly in the cloud world. And then there's some other features which have come online. So there's Nintex data tables. So you're actually able to go and define tables that you want to store information inside of your workflow and use them in your forms. And you can store that inside of Nintex tables. So if you've got, for example, information that you don't want to save into a SharePoint environment, lists, and also you don't want to go and create your own database somewhere, then you can go and put information and store it inside of the Nintex data tables environment themselves. You can create form plugins now for Nintex Automation forms, which means you can go and create some code and put that inside of there in a very structured way. We've done that inside of Jam for things that are as simple as creating you nice breadcrumbs, as well as some more complex situations where we've got customers that have got crazy nuts validation rules that sit across their forms that we just wanted to put into some succinct code and make that work. So that's a nice framework. There's a load more connectors out of the box. I think there's about 100 so that sit inside of there now. Some of them are really useful, some of them not, but there's a lot of options that sit inside of there. So that makes kind of development time a lot easier for you. There's anonymous start forms, and this one is quite nice because this gives the ability, not only on start forms, but also on task forms, gives you the ability to interact with people that are not inside your organization, that don't have to log in and have a login into your company to go and do something in a task, either in a workflow, to give you information or to make a decision. And you can do that without paying an exorbitant cost to connect out to external parties. So that, again, is a really good example. Some use cases there for you might be asking people to apply for a job. So we've done that with people whereby, on website, there's an application form. They go in, fill in the details that they would like to apply for a role inside the organization, don't have to log in, etc. Click submit, and it comes, and off you go. So just a simple example of that. On the form design part, the whole form design experience for those of you that haven't used modern Nintex forms is completely different. It's a lot slicker than it was in the past. Really well thought out, ability to go and design forms and to put rules and logic behind that. In addition to that, there's some nice fast starters that sit there. So you can actually design forms from PDFs that you might have and sort of use it as a start to get going. I actually did it this morning for one of the clients who just wanted a bit of a prototype. They sent me over their PDF. I put it in there. It gave me a quick, fast start, which got me going. And I created the little prototype for the client, presented it to them. They said, okay, that looks like you're in the right place. And then I actually went and designed it from scratch because there were a few things that were missing, but it really helped me get to that sort of point of proof with the organization. And then new is designing forms from AI. So the ability to go in and type and say what kind of form you're creating, what sort of information you'd like to collect, and then it will generate the first iteration of that for you. And I'm sure we're going to see that kind of evolve over time as well. So there's a lot more capabilities in there. Also, I thought just a little shout out. We're partners of a company called Jigs. And inside of there, it's a low-code rapid app dev mobile platform. And they've got an app for Nintex. And also you can go and build your own workflows and plug them into that app. So if you want a really rich mobile app that sits on top of your Nintex workflows, then that's a good option that's available to you if you've moved up into this modern world. If you're staying on-prem, Nintex K2 really is an enterprise-grade business app platform that will enable you to scale up the complexity of the automation solutions that you build in that on-premise environment. You can build SharePoint and non-SharePoint business applications, and these can run from really simple things all the way through to massively complex business process applications. some of the things that we build on side of K2, Nintex for K2, are really quite spectacular. And then Nintex has got a lot more outside of just the process engines. They've got a wider stack, which we're not going to cover off today, but it'll run all the way through from discovery, mapping, RPA, all the way through to document generation, signatures, etc., that run in and around the workflow stack. That if you've got Nintex Automation Cloud or K2 for Nintex, you can start to leverage those as well in your solutions. I thought for those of you that haven't seen K2, we'd just give you a little bit of an example as to what some of these applications looks like and some use cases just to bring it to life a little bit. So K2's got a technology called Smart Forms, which you can really skin and theme as much as you want. They don't just give you the ability to go and create the data capture forms and the approval forms. They also give you the ability to go and create entire portals that people can come and log in. So you can build your own application portals. This is an example for a manufacturing company in the US that we do work for to manage their application stack. One of the examples we do there for them is their CapEx approvals, as well as their timesheeting and a whole bunch of applications that live completely inside of K2. And people log into K2 as a portal and they interact with that. And behind the scenes, we're plugging into some other systems, but people live entirely inside of K2. Another good example that you can do to plug into some of the AI pieces that are out there today and other systems, we have produced a solution which enables large volume CV and resume processing and receiving those CVs in any format you like, getting the data out, taking that, putting it through to a team, and if it's all looking good, just straight through creating standard CVs, and then uploading those into success factors and notifying teams that there's a new candidate to look at, all the way through to having the ability to somebody to look at that CV, see if there's things that are missed they don't like, amend it themselves, and then again get that standardized and saved up through into success factors. So that's a pretty cool solution. Also, in Welbeck, which is one of our clients, K2 is used to help them produce modern health check reports. So if you were to go to a doctor and get all your bloods and stools, etc., all of that will come back. Those tests will come back. We stitch that all together from the different formats. We pass that through to K2. That then comes in, shows all the results sets through to the relevant clinical parties, whether they be nurses, doctors, specialists, who have a look and just validate that. And then it generates the entire report off the back of that from one of our partners called DocFusion, and then gives you that full report, and then presents that for approval and send out to the client. So you can do really quite complex things. And last but not least, if you are a company that is looking at case management, then K2 can be used for case management as well. And we have a whole framework, which is our work and case management framework, that you can take to do those more complex case management type solutions like renewals, claim handling, etc., and things like that. So a very powerful platform. Just thought it'd be fun to give you some screenshots just in case you haven't seen that. So as I said, a couple of small top tips for your consideration. Doesn't matter which technology you're going to do. If you're coming from Nintex for SharePoint on-prem in particular, then there's a few things that you might need to think about at the high level, once as you're considering what to do. First of all is security. So when you're sitting on-prem, very easy to lock everything down. Doesn't mean it's more secure, it just means you sort of got that ability. When you're moving into the cloud, you will need to think about where is your data held. If you've got, for example, some SQL databases on-prem and you move into the cloud, are you going to open up gateways for connectivity through to that? Maybe, maybe not. Are you going to rehost that information somewhere else and make connectivity to go through? Maybe. If you're then interconnecting into other systems, how are you going to go and do that? What accounts are you going to use? What security protocols are going to run? Will you need to create any extensions that sit inside that place? How are people going to log in? What authentication method are they going to leverage? You won't be using your on-prem AD. You're going to go up to Azure AD and leverage that. So there's security considerations you need to think about. On the integration side, I mentioned that as part of the topic above. Data is all important. And what I've found with a lot of the customers that we speak to is that they've used SharePoint because at the time that's all they had to go and store, not so much the documents, but it's all they had at the time to go and store the data that was being captured. And their lists have got way too many columns in them, and they've got way too many rows. So the performance is really poor, and the ability to go and interact with that information is really difficult. So the question to ask yourself is, well, should all that data live inside of SharePoint? The answer is probably not. It's probably a mixture of putting it somewhere into other systems, into a database, etc., and then having some data that's inside of SharePoint that works. And you need to think about splitting that out and where it lives. Some things are just complicated. I've seen many workflows where you sort of open them up, and there's about 60 steps that has no code in it, but it's 60 steps to loop through different collections and transpose data and have loads of if but maybes inside of that workflow process, which actually makes maintaining that incredibly difficult. So sometimes, hey, don't be afraid of little code. So when you go into the cloud, you can easily host code. You can write extensions and plugins to leverage that, which can actually make it A, that complex stuff more testable, and B, makes it more consumable and keeps your workflows a lot more sort of slim, tidy, and easier to maintain and manage without sort of looking at that big picture. And then finally, just reiterating, are your processes fit for purpose? Okay, so now is your chance really to affect change on processes and workflows and processes that you've built. So I suggest that you take this opportunity to have a good look. And for those that just can move over straight away, go for it. For those that are no longer used, hey, take this opportunity to just don't move them over and then see if anybody complains. And then for those which actually are really important to your business, there's an opportunity there to re-engineer those. And then, of course, there's the opportunity to do a lot more than you were able to do before. So just think about that. If you're moving to the Microsoft Power Platform, hey, this is a half-an-hour webinar. The Power Platform is a massive topic with Power Automate, Power Apps, Power BI, Dataverse, and more that sits inside of there. So we're not going to cover all of that today. That's going to come in one of the secondary webinars that we'll do down the road. And we'll just talk on the areas that are relevant between the two technologies. So what is our recommended approaches? So if you have Nintex and have decided to move to NAC and you know what you're doing and you have time and resources, go for it. Just don't wait. Just get in touch with the Nintex team, get the migration tooling set up, and go and do that. If you've got Nintex and you've decided you're going to move to NAC and you've got simple workflows that are not going to change, you have resources and time, then you can work with the Nintex migration team, not just with the tooling, but actually they will provide some oversight and support for you to get your applications, your workflows moved from A to B. And then if you've got some scenarios which don't fit with inside of that remit, then of course you can reach out to us and we'll support you to take you that last mile. If you've got Nintex and you're going to move to NAC and you've got slightly more complex workflows in there or things that you want to revisit and have a look at, then again, just like the previous one, you can work with the Nintex migration team with the tooling and to take some of their oversight care, but then you can leverage us to support you and get everything migrated on. So we can either help you build that or we can take it all away for you and actually do the complete migration, the process re-engineering piece with you, everything soup to nuts and support you. If you've decided to stay on-prem and you're going to move to K2, as I mentioned, give us a call. It really is something that we've got decades of experience in. We've got a lot of frameworks and tools that will be able to support you and best practices, and we'll be able to accelerate that build experience for you and help you do a lot more. If you've got an Nintex and decided to move to the Power Platform, again, give us a shout. I would say one, to sanity check that decision and just see if it's the right thing for you, and two, if it is, then we'll help you and support you in what you need to do in order to make that a success as well. So all up, if you're not sure what to do, give us a call. One of the things that we do to help companies, not just at this technology level as well, is when they're looking at replatforming, is that we provide a high-level automation assessment where we'll come and talk to you, we'll come and run you through our assessment tool, which will generate your report, which will then highlight, okay, well, what do you as a company want to do over the next 1 to 5 years? What tooling do you have today, and what tooling do you need to bring in order to support that? What skills do you have in your team, and would you need to grow in your team in order to do that? And what support we can give you, and we'll provide that with you and then work with you to implement that across your organization. So quite a nice option for you as well. So give us a shout. So that leads me on to the final piece, which is, hey, get in touch. Please give us a call, email us at info@jamautomation.com, or email myself at andrew@jamautomation.com, or for those that know me well, murph@jamautomation.com. Go visit our website, click the contact us, and we'll get back through to you. That's it from me. I hope it's been useful. I'd like to say thank you very much to the team that helped put the slide deck together, and I'll chat to you all later. Thank you very much.